Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 21 of Yellow Pike Media's official podcast, On the Hook. This week, we're going to go inside YPM. We're going to bring on our very own Jared Hernandez, actor, video editor, associate producer, social media producer. Guy really kind of does it all. He is, without question, my right-hand man here on the podcast. Most of what I say and do, he writes. So this is interesting. It'll be a lot of fun talking to him. And Jared.
Hello, Rick.
I told you one day we were going to have you on. Today's the day.
And I thought it was going to be in like there's going to be a guest on and I'll just be like the little side person. I did not know I was going to be the focal point. So my heart is beating out of my chest right now.
Is it? It's different when you have to talk about yourself instead of listening to someone else talk about them.
Yep. And then on top of the fact that I have to edit it now, so I have to sit through an hour of myself.
Oh, you're one of those people that does not like the sound of their own voice.
I mean, after an hour-long edit, and it maybe not even the sound of my voice, but maybe like the dumb things that I say, or but I can cut it out. But
it's going to be hard not cutting it out. That'll be the interesting part.
I'm going to be much more critical on this one, I'm sure.
Why don't we jump in with? Tell me how you got here. What was your path like? It says there's a comment in your little bio you wrote for me to read, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. It says Jared shares his journey from growing up as a performer to building a career in the creative industry. Let's start there. Young Jared, what puts you into this career path?
I would say early elementary school, first, second, third grade. I just loved making people laugh. And there was this one moment in third grade. It was like a rainy day. Everybody was stuck inside. We were all in costumes for some reason. It might have been October. And that like Figaro, like that like opera stereotypical. So like little me in a tux, like I just stood up in the middle of class and just started doing that full on opera thing. Everybody cracking up, laughing. And I remember that feeling, and I was like, ooh, I like this. So then in my mind, I'm like, how can I pursue this feeling, and then in second grade, I did a theater, like a little play. I did theater in school plays and whatnot. And there was this one play we did for like a parent teacher night. And I was one of the leads, and I was standing across from this kid named James Chung. And we were doing this scene. Midway through the scene, he like kind of blanks and forgets his lines. And I kind of come in and like phrase his line in a question to like remind him of what it was. Save the play. No one knew. And like that's second grade. So it's like I like that feeling of like, I saved the day kind of thing.
I'm good at this, right?
Yeah. Just theater and all that. And then in high school is when I started kind of pursuing it professionally. And then as far as how I landed at YPM, COVID happened 2020. I had been acting for almost 15 some plus years now at that point.
Right.
But it wasn't fulfilling me creatively. And I didn't really have a backup, like acting was what I was putting all my focus in. So I decided to, take a shot at like trying to video edit, doing social media management. And like, I had a couple odd end jobs that gave me a little bit of experience, and then decided to check. I was unemployed for about 4 months. And towards the end of the 4 months, my girlfriend was like giving me like kind of the nudge, like, okay, come on.
It took her 4 months.
Yeah. And I went on Craigslist. I'd had success there in the past, and I saw an internship for Yellow Pike Media. I saw that they were like kind of in the video game space. They were looking for a video editor intern specifically. And so I just reached out, had a call with them, and then 6-month internship, ended up doing that. It was amazing. You guys gave me so many opportunities to learn in so many different departments. I felt odd. I was 31 coming into the internship. The other 2 interns were 21 and like 25 or something.
Right.
So I felt that like, kind of out of place, but I was like, you know what? I'm here.
I can relate to that. I didn't start in the games industry till I was almost 40.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I had radio background. I had a lot of tech and IT background. Got offered a gig and went, let's uproot my life and go do that for a little while. Yeah, so I
And
can relate to that.
yeah, and kind of the same. Like prior to this, like in my early 20s and stuff, I did like internships through like a casting company. I did an internship at a social media marketing company, and so I popped around. And then that, in addition to like my acting and on-set experience, that kind of just getting into the behind the camera type stuff was kind of like the next step. So
Really great fits for us here, though, which is why you were brought on full time, because you kind of touch in all the spaces that maybe people don't realize that YPM has a full creative team and a full production capability outside of influencers and community
yeah.
management and just super specific game industry things.
Mhm.
How did you actually? I'm assuming you were a gamer when you got here, or did we corrupt you?
No, I was a gamer. I have been a gamer my entire life, and Sega Genesis being my first console, and then PC and Xbox and Nintendo consoles. Like, it's always been a huge part. I would say, but during COVID, I ended up teaching my girlfriend and bought her Xbox and taught her how to play Call of Duty, and now she is an amazing sniper.
Uh-oh.
She's actually getting better than me. I think she might be on par. And me and my girlfriend and my two best friends, we have a squad. The four of us, we play, and it's brought all of us even closer together than we already were. That paired with now working here, so like the game codes, if we get randomly, or just like working on, I don't know if I won't say names. We worked on a project and we ended up getting a script in, and I remember reading the entire script for this game and just like seeing the Easter eggs and things connecting from past games and other titles and things like that. And I was like, I love this. Like, this is so cool. And I think what this job did do is I went from first person shooter, Rainbow Six, Call of Duty, that kind of stuff. But now I'm kind of getting into like the slower paced, Starfields and like those
Sure.
kind of,
A kind of RPG vibe.
exactly. Yeah. Kind of the roaming kind of,
into the world.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You said you don't want to name names, but if I look over here at one of the questions you wrote, your first acting gig was with a very well-known brand.
Oh, it was. Didn't want to name names in this sense at
Sure.
work because I don't want to
You can
break
go
an
ahead and say that
NDA.
one because quite a while ago.
So first gig was a Coca-Cola commercial. As like a principal performer, I had done some random background, but Coca-Cola commercial. My grandma drove me to set, sat on set all day. She was a rock star. She took me to all my auditions, like would sit in a sound stage for 8 hours while I was doing my thing.
Can we Google this commercial? Can we Google it and find it? I mean,
it's
forever,
probably
right?
somewhere. I'll try and find it and I'll include it in the edit, like cut away to something.
Nice.
But it was so funny because it was a Christmas campaign where they kind of just panned across different families' tables and different ethnic backgrounds and kind of going through. And I was like in the Latino Hispanic family, and it really is just like a pan through where I'm like laughing with my family.
It's kind of like how most actors start, right? They get those
Yeah.
little moments, those blink and you miss it kind of roles, and,
Yep.
and then it evolves into something, or they go into some related field. So you've got one listed here. We're going to mention the mouse.
Yeah.
You did a Disney 365 story?
Yes. So I was the host of Disney 365 for a few episodes. My first one, and this was the biggest job I had booked at the time. And it was.
How old were you?
I had just turned 19.
Okay.
And my first episode was interviewing Selena Gomez. And at the time, this was peak crush Selena Gomez. And she ended up, I think, starting to date Justin Bieber right after that. So my odds weren't great anyway. But this story itself, it was kind of like this, should I be doing this? Like I was having this existential, like, what is my purpose? Like, is this what I need to be doing? And I remember before I lived in LA, I lived in Orange County-ish area. So anytime I had an audition, I had to drive 2+ hours as a cushion to make sure I wasn't late. So this particular audition, I showed up early. I was there 2 hours early and I was sitting in my car, and this guy walks out of the building and he looks over at me as he's walking by, and then he comes to my car window and he's like, "Hey, are you auditioning for this Disney thing?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Do you like sports?" Like, he just asked me a couple random questions. And then he's like, "Cool, cool." He's like, "Well, go ahead and go in there and tell Veronica, the casting director, that you booked the job." And I was like,
Just by sitting in the car and saying you like sports?
"Yep." And my mind was blown. Um, it's just that doesn't happen.
I can imagine, right?
And it's like so many things had to go right for that to kind of all fall into place. And then I remember walking into the casting office, there was like 20 to 30 guys just sitting there running lines, like, and I'm like, they don't even know, like I just snatched it. But that's when I kind of knew. I was like, I could do this,
Totally. I mean, that's the classic Hollywood story, right? You're just in the right place, the right time, with the right look, and you were in. So it seems like you were doing pretty well for a while. What made you kind of change up? I mean, obviously COVID was the key motivator because nobody was making anything at that point.
Yeah.
Everything was shut down and closed. I know, because you mentioned it recently, I know you haven't totally walked away.
Yeah. So I think I took a step back during COVID to try and find that thing that really does creatively fulfill me. And for me personally, it's singing, playing guitar, writing music. Like, I love music. And with acting, it's kind of that thing where it's like, for a TV or film, it's like I can take a script and like bring that character to life and bring emotion to it and realize, on the page for that, whoever wrote it. But I feel like it's like I'm bringing someone else's dream to life or somebody else's vision, which is a skill. But like, I think when I write music and it just like, it's something unique that is never, like, I haven't heard before. It just came out of nothing, like I feel that way more. And so I stayed with commercial acting because I've been booking, and I don't really have to connect deeply to sell a sweater or whatever the product is. It's like,
sweaters sell themselves. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, put it on me. No,
well, naturally.
But yeah, so I took a step back, and decided to kind of go this route and building this career out. So at least I have a fallback plan, but in all of this, I'm starting to get the TV film bug again. So I'm thinking about getting a manager / possibly an agent again and going that route. But balancing everything is the main challenge.
So there's one day you may leave us by saying, "Hey, I booked the new Marvel film."
That would be incredible.
I'm just seeing a young Reed Richards. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Man, I wish I don't get half the references.
Fantastic Four, Reed Richards.
Pedro
Pascal is playing him in the announced film. Why not be a young Reed?
Yep. But I see myself as like a young Shia LaBeouf, or at least that's how not a young Shia LaBeouf, where I'm only a couple years younger than him, but that's how I saw my career and how I explained it to my agents. It's like he went from Even Stevens, this kind of like quirky, fun kid, and then to Eagle Eye, or Transformers and Eagle Eye, which are these action films, but he's not Thor. He's kind of this quirky underdog.
He's kind of, and I don't mean to be disrespectful for Shia, because he'll call me, but he kind of fills that role. Like in the 80s, there were a lot of films where you had that perfectly normal kid thrown into a really weird, Matthew Broderick in War Games, that kind of hero role.
Yeah.
Kind of always felt like he was filling those roles. The guy that just wants a car and ends up with a transformer.
Yep. Yeah. And that's how I see it. It's like, you're not going to see me with an 8-pack and Thor's hammer. Like, I'm the guy that like, what? I have an alien car and like I have to save the world now. Like,
right.
Yeah. So that's how I kind of see it. So coming back to acting.
Coming back. So on the notes you have, I'm just dying to ask you this question. You're going back to acting. You've got a dad era story.
So
this I need to hear.
Yeah. So I personally don't think that I'm there yet as far as like going out for the dad roles, but my agent has been sending me out commercially, at least, for these roles that are young dad, so I'm starting to creep into that era of my acting career. But I was talking to a casting director recently, as well as another friend that is a very successful commercial actor. And they were both saying that, like, if you can hold out and get to your dad stage, it's windfall. Like cha-ching is what, quoting the casting director, he said cha-ching. There's like a shortage on dad actors, or that age range. Because if you think about it, it's like the dad actors that are working right now are probably people like me who have been doing it for the last 20 years and stuck with it. There's not a lot of people. There's a lot of drop off at late 20s, early 30s that are like, it's not working anymore. I need to like take a step back.
I got to go get a real job or
exactly.
something.
And that happens to a lot of people. And there's very few, I would say, that are just in their 30s or 40s being like, you know what, I'm gonna start acting now, just from scratch. So I think it really is the people that have kind of stuck with it that are kind of reaping that reward. So I'm right there. So although I was feeling jaded over the last 20 years, like I just, when do you stop? When is,
right.
One more audition, one more job, one more, I don't know.
When do you start listening to those voices that have been telling you, this is a nice hobby, but you should get a job? And I'm sure you probably heard that a lot from certain people in your life.
My goodness, I have a very supportive family. And like I said, my grandma would take me to everything. My dad would take me to auditions. My mom, they'd pay for headshots, acting classes. And I was very grateful for my support system. But there are from my other grandma, like, oh, mijo, you need to have a backup plan, like blah, blah. And I'm like, you don't get it. Like when I'm done acting, I know I can I'll teach myself something and pick something up,
right?
Which I did. So it's like I'm just kind of going with the flow, like it's worked out so far.
So being here, and first of all, I've said this on podcasts before, but you were never on camera when I said it. You do so much for this podcast in prepping it and writing all the runs of shows and helping book guests and everything. This podcast literally doesn't exist without you basically holding everything up. I just come on and say words. You do so much here. I cannot thank you enough for everything you do on this podcast. What do you want to do next, though, at YPM? What kind of projects do you enjoy the most? What do you really look forward to? We have such a diversity of projects that come in.
Yeah.
What are the things you're looking at? I know you recently just started, because we're working together on a project as a producer on non sort of like AV shooting kind of editing kind of project.
Yeah, like budget sheets and
yeah.
So I think long term, I would really like to, because like we do these like live shoots with influencers, like we did for Suicide Squad and Starfield and things like that. And being on the Suicide Squad one I was able to be on, but watching Mitch direct and kind of like just how the set is being run, being on that set was a huge like opportunity that Mitch gave me to come out and like help mount cameras. And so I was like, any excuse, I was like climbing the rock wall to set the camera, or like doing the obstacle courses and anything I could get my hands on. But I think with my experience, like being able to talk to actors or performers in general, even if they're playing themselves, there's this, I think, a unique connection that I have specifically in YPM space to be able to convey that, and maybe take off the pressure, the anxiety, or, so I think directing would be like end goal. Outside of YPM, I think also directing like music videos and producing and editing as well. Just because, again, if I could, that's how this kind of came about. It's like video editing is something that I enjoy, but video games as well. And it's just like finding those two things that, to make the experience that much better. Punch the mic. I
think it's called a mic drop, not a mic punch.
Yeah.
We'll fix it in the edit. No worry. It'll look cool.
Yeah.
I know this guy. I feel like a lot of what you're saying, you started acting and you've gone through this and you had your moment. It all feels very traditional true Hollywood story kind of thing of the flow of an actor's life, especially the directing thing. What do you want to direct? What do you want to direct your own stuff, or do you want to be tasked with, here's our $10 million shoot and it's all on your back?
I think a combination of both, and I think it's kind of gonna just be the trajectory of probably me making my own stuff, and which I have done over the years and done that. I think, again, like music videos, I think I could probably start that myself. I have a ton of friends in that space, and as far as like big movies and big budget stuff, I don't know. I don't know what it is with like comedic, like based actor, or like that type of
Right.
actor, but like Jordan Peele, like with his horror films, like I love horror films, and I think that would be really cool to direct.
So you would lean more towards wanting to do comedic films, not like major blockbuster tentpole things, but more of the, like you said, Jordan Peele, that horror comedy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah. I would say
You
that.
don't sound convinced.
Yeah, because well, I don't know. There's like certain cheeky things in his movies, but I don't know the comedy part.
So
I
more
don't know.
satire, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
More satirical things.
Yeah, and then I really like Zach Braff's movies, Garden State and Wish I Was Here. Wish I Was Here is one of my favorite movies, and it is kind of about this guy.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Yeah. No, I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it really
great film.
Connected to me because it was like he's an actor and in his late 30s, early 40s, and it's like when do I stop? When do I have to get the job to take care of my family? And so that resonated with me. But I like introspective acting too. So not really over the top comedy, but I think grounded, real life kind of moments. And I think that would lend to, if I did horror, just things happen that are funny. They just happen to be, but nothing over the top, not Wayne Brady type stuff, you know?
You mentioned introspective acting, which I love as a phrase. Stage, maybe a Jared Hernandez one-man show at the Pasadena Playhouse.
So for me personally, I have not ever been the theater guy. I just
really
being a part of it or viewing it, it is its own talent, it's its own skill, but an acquired. I don't know. It's just not for me. I think going back to the introspective acting, I think it's harder to do that theatrically just because you have to project more. You have to kind of reach the back row. I like the live aspect of it because it does give you that excitement, you know, of like, oh, like, you know, you get one shot at it. But I think too, like another reason why I kind of stepped away from acting, it's like everything around not being on set. I don't like it. Like the acting classes and the headshot sessions and the networking events, like all that stuff.
So that fits with a conversation we had before we started recording about neither one of us really liking self-promotion, even in cases where it's kind of required, right? Like in job interviews or in any kind of self-review or having to write your own bio. So I can get that, and I understand how that would be challenging. But even so, as someone who doesn't like to take photographs at all, I get the headshots thing. So if it's like with me, there's a vibe I get from you, and maybe it's true of all actors, and I know you can't speak for all of them, but I'm sure you know a few. Is there that, yes, I come across a very certain way on camera. I come across a very certain way, arguably extroverted, but when the camera shuts down, very introverted.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of actors say that. Would you say that's true for you?
I would 100% say that, because I am more reserved, and unless I really know you, I'm pretty reserved and kind of low key.
You never talk to me.
Yeah. Unless, yeah. Well, it's your fault for being on the East Coast, right?
Well, that's fair too. So I do find that interesting because I do hear it a lot.
And I think that's a huge reason why, like, I know, like, people are like, oh my God, it's Thor. And they forget to make the disconnect of that's a human being playing a character. there was a story I heard. I was at an audition, and the movie I had watched the night before, the guy in the movie was sitting right there next to me. So I asked him, I was like, "Oh, I just saw your movie last night." There, he was working with Ed Helms, and he said that he was extremely quiet on set, very reserved. And it's like Andy from The Office. You don't think that, but it's like,
Wow,
it's the character, you know?
sure.
Yeah.
And you always hear, this person just hides in their trailer all the time. This big star who plays, very over the top roles, but and I guess there's a propensity amongst the public to think of that as being aloof and arrogant, but really it's more introversion than it is anything else.
Kind of going back to what we were talking about before, if that actor that instead of being in his trailer was walking around set and just kind of hanging out, the compliments, the like all the things coming at them, and it's like, because they're still human too, so I'm sure a lot of them have that, like, oh, I don't know how to accept compliments, or like, like that's
Right.
definitely a thing. There was this story that I heard, or it was in kind of a roundtable interview that I watched a while back, and it was with Ray. I always get it mixed up. It's Ray Romano, right?
From everybody.
Ray Barone. I get them mixed up from everybody.
Ray Barone is the character. Ray Romano.
Ray Romano is the guy. Yeah.
Comedian. Yes.
So it was like Ray Romano, David Spade. It was a bunch of huge actors. I think Chris Rock was there, and they were just talking about their career experience. And this is years after Everybody Loves Raymond, and obviously he's a huge star. And he was just saying, like, I'm waiting for them to figure out that I don't know what I'm doing and that I don't belong here. And I remember watching that and thinking, like, wow, like even at his stage, like that kind of anxiety, or like that imposter syndrome. Exactly. Yeah. That imposter syndrome, it never goes away. And that was a huge kind of like click for me, where it's like, yeah, I'm going to feel like I'm out of place. I'm going to feel like in the internship, like I like, but pushing through those feelings of inadequacy and just kind of doing it because either you want to do it for whatever reason.
Sure.
Pushing through, and it usually has worked out, at least for me.
I think the imposter syndrome thing is super relatable, because I don't care what industry you're in. I think at some point everyone in their career has experienced that. Yep. Where it's like, somebody's going to wake up one day and go, why are we keeping them around? They don't know anything. Let's get rid of them. And I know a lot of friends that have it. I've certainly had it in my multiple careers. It just kind of pops up and comes in. How do you deal with it? How do you kind of push yourself over that?
It really is hard. And it's something I would say, once I turned 30, I'm 33 now. Once I turned 30, I kind of was in that phase of like finding myself and like, what do I want, my purpose and everything. And I think I was exhausted with myself, with kind of the fear side of it and the anxiety side of it, and like it holding me back from doing certain things. So it's one of those things where it's like looking at building a career. Like if you would have told me 2 years ago, like, oh, you're going to be producing a podcast, doing the social media, you're going to be doing this at this company, I'd be like I'd be so overwhelmed. But I think even in my trash talk, my piece of advice that I would give was like, just take it one piece of it at a time. Just do one small thing towards that greater goal. And that is still for me incredibly hard. Like I just recently found out that I had ADHD, which undiagnosed my whole life. So now everything's making sense. Right. And it's just doing it. It's just doing it. That's literally all it is.
And just make it across the room, then the building, then down the street. Just keep moving forward.
And not running from fear, but going towards it. And it's the scariest thing to do. But a random comedian I saw last night talking about this, they were just saying like, fear is all I know. Fear is a necessity. Like you need that. And it's true. So
like athletes talking about, you need that hunger, you need that spark, you need that thing that motivates you, that's from inside, not necessarily outside.
Yeah, the money's not enough.
Right. Interesting. Speaking of trash talk, small inside joke. If you haven't seen our trash talks, you can go to TikTok and look them up. We also put them out on other socials, so you can check them out. It's they're all over the place. Jared produces those as well. If you recognize his voice, it's because he's the Inquisitor. on the trash talks.
Yep.
Don't watch the one with me.
Oh no, I don't know. I think that's the one they need to watch. That was our biggest budget yet. That's Michael Bay budget.
That was a transcontinental trash talk.
Hmm.
That was something a little different. But yeah,
Yeah.
Jared does a lot around here. You're taking on more and more. How does that help fuel your imposter syndrome of, oh, now I'm going to do this next thing? Or does it kind of, and maybe the answer is both, or does it kind of like tamp down your ADHD? Because now you've got so many things going on. Does that kind of help you sort of rein it all in?
So it doesn't help me rein it all in. But I would say that I have a sneaky strategy to why I do so many things. And it started from my internship, but my goal, because I didn't know if I was going to be hired. So my goal in the internship was to get my hands on as many different projects and departments as possible. So that way, if they're like, all right, we got to get rid of you, it would just leave a black hole. So I'm trying to like do as much as I possibly can to really solidify myself. So I don't get kicked off the team, you know? And it's one of those things where it's like really accepting. It's like taking a step back and really appreciating, not in like an arrogant or cocky way, like we were talking, but like really kind of celebrating those small wins and like seeing the progress that you've made and looking back and seeing how far I've come. That has been a huge motivator. Even when I was kind of handed social media from Adam to start producing, seeing the change in like when I had more kind of creative control and you know, over it, and making the videos kind of from start to finish and like conceptualizing, maybe writing the sketches, acting in them, and seeing that growth at a very small level. I mean, we're not talking millions, but although one of our videos hit 900K, which can't take complete credit. That was
I think we give Shane the credit for that one.
That was for sure Shane, but as a company,
and well done.
As a company, we hit that mark.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's just trying to be kind and to myself and not as hard on myself is something that I've been trying to do, and that has been getting me through it. But there are times when I've got like 6 or 7 different things going, and it's just like, okay, like blinders on, like first thing, just knock it out, and then just do it as it comes, you know, as needed. So
what did this is a 2-part question.
Okay.
First of all, what advice would you give to someone who is that 6-year-old who thinks they really want to act? What's the advice to that person? The person just starting out and thinking, I think I want to do this. Maybe not a 6-year-old, maybe a 16-year-old or even 19-year-old, Jared.
I think at this stage, like if you're a 6-year-old, you probably have an iPad in this generation. So I would say they always say like make your own content, like do your own thing. And especially now it's like a necessary evil with social media and like promoting yourself and doing that whole thing, self-promotion. I would say at 6, just be creative. If you like making people laugh, or if theater is your thing and school, like get out there and kind of do those things. I would say from 16, and honestly, like I said, I'm 33 now. I'm still trying new things. And there's that sense of, for the 19-year-old, there's that sense of like, oh my God, what do I need to do with my life? I have to have the answer. I need to do this. And like, as you have too, just talking in this conversation, like we've gone through multiple careers in the span of from us being a kid to now. And it's not just career changes, but you as a person change every few years, 5 years or so. And your interests might be different. The way you look at things might be different. And I would say just following that internal compass of like what makes you happy, follow your heart in what you want to do, and don't worry about timelines, because everybody's timeline is different. Everybody's way to get, there's so many different routes, you know, there's no right way to do it.
I feel like your answer to my second part of this question is going to be exactly the same thing, because it was, the second part of this question would be, what about someone wanting to get in the games industry? Basically, I'm ripping off Trash Talk now. What would you tell someone who wanted to get into this industry? Either into a studio or into, your position now at Yellow Pike? Obviously, internship's good.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I was talking to like my dad's best friend has a son he just graduated high school, and he's a gamer, and we were talking about my job here, and he was just like, whoa, like you get to work with video games, and like it puts in perspective too, like how cool our job is,
Right.
But I told him, I was like, do internships. Like for me personally, the college route, like when I had started my first year of college, I had booked the Disney show. So I was flying around doing episodes. I was working, and I'm like, I don't need a degree to act. Like I'm doing it,
Right.
So college, yay or nay, up to you. But for me, it was like I really benefited from the internships that I did at the marketing agency and the casting company, and just kind of getting that hands-on experience. And over the years, after doing multiple internships, it kind of all of my life experience, was pretty well rounded from a entertainment standpoint. So really, it depends on like what direction you want to go. If you did want to get into the gaming industry and you don't have any experience at all, teach yourself how to edit YouTube videos, like teach yourself how to do Photoshop or do some internships. Like just try and build that like experience and be willing to help with anything. Like if you started the internship, like, oh, can I try this? Like, don't be afraid to ask questions, I guess, is my main thing.
Once you get in the door, ask everybody everything, right?
Yeah. And we all have heard this. There's no stupid questions. And there are, but
I was glad you said it. I didn't want to be the one.
There are stupid questions. But when I was told that at this internship, I was sitting there and I'm like, no, like you need to ask the questions that you need to ask. And I think the advantage that I might have had going into it, because I felt older than the other two internships, is I felt like this, like maybe I don't need to feel like I'm too cool to ask the question, or I'm too, like I'm just going to do it because I know what I need to do to set myself apart, and it thankfully worked. But yeah, ask all the questions.
Yeah, I think that's a better way actually of putting it than there are no stupid questions. I think it's there are no bad questions, right? If you genuinely don't know, you should never have that sense of fear of how will I be judged, right? You're an intern, you're just here. No one expects you to know that answer. So that there's no shame in asking questions.
And I think that was like the kind of thing that really set YPM apart from like other jobs that I'd had in the past, or internships, or things that I've done, is just the company has this very small family feel, which they've cultivated a really good office culture and like kind of this approachable open door kind of situation. Mm-hmm. And it made it easy to do that, to kind of ask questions and, hey, can I be a part of this? Or like, oh, can I sit in on this meeting, or blah, blah, whatever. So.
Yeah. I feel like, and it's one of the reasons I came here, and one of the reasons I've stayed so long, it's like, I do feel like there is always that, if you want to know, ask and come be part of it and learn. There are no stupid questions. There are no gatekeepers here, I guess. That's why I say no one's going to tell you, no, I'm not going to tell you how to do that because this is how I hoard my job and guarantee my career. No, everyone has always been very open here. I think it's one of the best things about this agency in general. It is very much a people place.
Yep, I would agree.
What is next, though? Are you booking something? Can you give us a little piece of?
So right now, this podcast will come out in 2 days, but right now, currently, there's a Walmart commercial circulating that I'm in.
Is it national?
It is a national, yeah. And then there is a national spot that we'll be releasing that I just shot this last week for Allstate, and it's the Mayhem series.
Yeah.
So that one I'm very excited about. That was super fun. I got to work with the director who directed Ted Lasso. Got to work with like fire stunts and a couple friends that I saw on set. So it was a really cool experience. So that'll be out. I've also been doing like a lot of freelance kind of editing for different brands and companies. And then I guess what would be next is like really looking into like a manager and agent again, and kind of with my kind of I guess the confidence that's been building over the last few years, kind of get back into theatrical, like TV and film, with kind of a new set of eyes and like a little break,
Sure.
and give it another shot while juggling YPM, which honestly, like I did server jobs for so long just to be flexible and in order to do auditions and work, and being able to, how cool everybody's been with allowing me to go on auditions or like take the day like to go do this commercial or whatever. It's been so helpful. And really, like during that 4 months that I mentioned that I was unemployed, I had done a series of a few Wingstop commercials that residual wise ended up giving me kind of a cushion to be able to do the internship. So like acting really is kind of opened the door for me to have that flexibility to try something new out and kind of build something, from scratch essentially. But
Very cool. I'm really glad we got you in front of the camera finally.
yeah, my heart's not pounding on my chest anymore.
Huh?
It
You're
usually
good?
is. Yeah, I'm good now. Yeah, it's usually the moments before
Mhm.
that are the worst for me. But yeah, no, I love this because it's like so many people can relate to whether you're an actor or whatever creative you are. There was this one girl at Trader Joe's the other day. She was at the register, and this ties in pretty good with what we were talking about earlier about cocky or bragging or whatever about
Sure.
our accomplishments. And this girl was probably like early 20s. And she was telling her coworker, she's like, "Hey, I just wanted to tell you, like, I just did this play last night. It was our first show, and like, it went really good. Like, I felt," and she was just like super excited about it. And then she looked at me and she's like, "Oh, sorry, I'm being braggy." And I was like, "No," I was like, "Please, like, I'm super happy for you. Like, it's not braggy at all. Like, you do have to celebrate every little win along the way because." There are times where you're going to be doing really good and booking things, and there's going to be sometimes years where you don't at all. And when I was on set on this Allstate commercial, one of my friends was on set, and he books everything. There's a picture somewhere of me. My hair is like down to here. He was the guy that was in all my auditions with me with the same length hair. I ended up cutting my hair so I didn't have to
Differentiate.
compete with him.
Right.
And I saw him on set, and he's like, "Man," he's like, "this year's been really tough. Like, I haven't, like, this is like one of the first things that I booked this year," which is not the norm for him. And it was like encouraging to see and hear too, that it's like, it's everyone. Like, it does happen to everyone, regardless of how good you are or successful you are. But yeah, so just take every opportunity to be
Yeah,
grateful and
I
celebrate.
think culturally we have this concept of shameless self-promotion. I say
Mhm.
toot your own horn because no one's gonna do it for you.
No.
I think that's a perfect example, and because, like you just said, you may end up hearing about someone who you always thought was kind of so much beyond what you could be, who's having similar struggles, who's having, you know, wins, but not at the rate or scale they used to. And now, you're having some wins, and I think it's important to share those experiences and share, kind of your path, because like with the woman you were talking about, it's encouraging to hear other people's wins.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the problem with social media as a whole, is that everybody's putting their best foot forward and putting everything out there like it's this perfect life. And like, whoa, he booked 4 commercials. Like, what the heck? But you don't see the behind the scenes. You don't see the grueling
The
5
10 he
auditions.
didn't book, right?
Oh, exactly.
No one puts the L on Instagram. They only post the W's.
Yep. And I think if more people started being honest and kind of like, hey, like, this is what happened, or like, or I am having a tough time, or blah, blah, you don't know who's going to see that and who that's going to inspire, and who's going to like make feel better, or like whatever it is. So I think the honesty of, the ups and downs of this industry, but really in any industry, and everybody's lives have those up and downs, but it's okay to have those.
Definitely. Jared, again, thank you so much for coming on and getting in front of the camera and having the conversation and sharing part of your journey and your experiences here at Yellow Pike Media. For everyone who is listening, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. We will make sure we post up all the links we can possibly find for Jared's commercials, good and bad, down below. And of course, if you want to find out more about Yellow Pike Media, you can just go to yellowpike.com and check out all of our reels, or you can follow us on socials. All of the links are also at our website. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you in about a month. Bye.
Later.
I'm Selena.
And I'm Jared, and this is
Disney 365. Happy holidays.
See ya!